so the guitar player from King Diamond is going to be on our record also? I'm like, yes. Like, oh shit, okay. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time on the channel, hit subscribe right now. Silvertalon is a band that you need to have on your radar. The band brings a really cool modern mix of a lot of genres, but are heavily influenced by like late 80s, early 90s proggy power metal. Their album Decadence and Decay comes out on May 28th, and I sat down with guitar virtuoso Bryce to learn all about it. Bryce, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
I'm sure that you're counting down the days until May 28th, I believe, is the launch for Decadence and Decay.
Yeah.
Before we go into all the new things on the album, from just a question that I have for you based on all the stuff that you've released so far. What is it with bands in Portland that can't help but mix every genre together and come up with something completely different?
This is kind of something that I've been thinking a little bit about lately, because like in Portland, we don't have kind of like a Portland sound, so to speak,
exactly.
Right? It's not like, where you think of like, Florida death metal or like Norwegian black metal or Swedish death metal, even down to like the city, Gothenburg versus Stockholm or whatever. In Portland, it's just like anything goes. The overall sort of driving factor for musicians in Portland is that I think everybody's kind of trying to do their own thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you sort of take the backbone, which is like, in some ways sort of like traditional heavy metal, I guess, or like heavy metal with like, this is the raw heavy metal. And then you sort of just start adding little bits to it in order to kind of make your own sort of sound. So I think that everybody in the scene here is kind of on that sort of same page, that the more unique you are, probably the better.
A lot of bands these days are, looking back at the very early 80s. I would say that with you guys, you look more at later 80s, early 90s prog power. We definitely hear Savatage, we hear Queensryche, we hear Nevermore quite a bit in the new material as well, maybe even some Fate's Warning. What draws you guys to that sound? Because, and I could be wrong here, but I'm gonna have a wild guess that if the band members were around in the late 80s, early 90s, you were very young.
Yeah, most of us were not existent.
So what is it about that sound that, like, that more, you said a little bit maybe proggy-ish kind of heavy metal, like, what is it that really draws you into that?
I don't know. It's kind of like we've all sort of come into that general interest just sort of independently of each other. So when I was in Spellcaster, Queensryche was obviously a big part of that overall sound. We tried to, I guess, get more Queensryche influence as time went on. So that, of course, carried over into silvertalon, where we're kind of just wearing that stuff on our sleeves. Even like the track that we have, Warrior's End, on the Becoming a Demon EP. I mean, in a way, we almost rip off a Queensryche riff. The main riff from that and the main riff from the Queensryche track Speak, pretty similar. Mm-hmm. So there's always been that sort of thing, and that song was initially written for Spellcaster, so we have Queensryche kind of following us as we sort of progress here. I think just making things maybe a little bit more interesting and a little less straightforward is kind of the way that we sort of approach that, and kind of what we take from those bands. It's never, the songs that we really enjoy are not the ones that are like, verse, chorus. Let's make a real, headbanging, fist pumping kind of song. We try to pull back and take a little bit more of like a nuanced sort of atmospheric kind of approach.
There's been quite a few changes in lineup recently. including your entire rhythm section. And even for a band that is, that stands out for the way that you guys play guitar and give those, unexpected hooks, at the end of the day, a rhythm section is what is the glue for a band. How was that for you, writing material with the new band, or at least have, practicing, having, a new band, play these songs? And do you see, from what you've been able to do with rehearsal so far, older material, is that coming out in a different way now you've got 3 guitar players and a brand new rhythm section?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's, like you're saying, not a lot of people think about bass and drums necessarily. I mean, I could probably name like, hundreds of bands that have just had a different drummer on like every album. Like the whole Judas Priest thing with like the 70s kind of stuff, where I think it was like a different guy on every album. And all of those albums kind of sound a little bit different just because of the way that the particular drummer on whatever said album is going to play that stuff. So, and it's, it's the same thing with us. Whereas I think Colin, who was our first drummer and also the drummer in Spellcaster, he has kind of more of like almost like a kind of jazzy sort of flavor. It's a little bit, maybe less straight ahead, but a little more kind of dancey almost in a way. Whereas Michael, our new drummer, he is just kind of like powerhouse kind of guy, where everything that he plays is with a lot of intention, and it's mostly just kind of like, to like pound a hole kind of in your ears, it's kind of almost like a more brutal assault sort of style of playing, I guess. For the new material, I think that it was something that definitely kind of added an additional bit of backbone to it, and probably why with this newer stuff we're getting a lot more of that kind of like Nevermore comparison. Because he's got more of the kind of like Van Williams style of drumming that's really just kind of like straight ahead, just sort of like almost like a machine sort of sounding kind of approach to it. And then bass playing wise,
like 3 guitar players in check.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We need to stay on time. But then bass playing wise, we have Walter. I don't even know how to. He's like from another planet as far as playing bass goes. Like I didn't know that people were into playing bass like as much as he is. Where it's just kind of like he can literally match everything that we do on guitar, but with a bass. So he comes up with these just crazy and sort of like out there insane bass lines, and I'm like, oh man, that's perfect. That's awesome. Like in Sever I Am, he puts like a tapping part in the middle of the kind of more flighty sort of like lift section, and it's like shit. Okay. He's like the perfect blend between, if you take like Steve Harris kind of bass lines where they're sort of like,
gallopy.
They're kind of like driving the song, and he doesn't just play the root, you know what I mean? He kind of goes to different parts of the neck and adds different intervals, which kind of add a bit of a different texture. Then mixed in with some of this like polyrhythmic kind of just interesting, genty, I guess, for lack of a better term, as much of a loaded kind of
for sure.
genre that is.
You are, without a doubt, one of the driving factors in the band. Does that mean that you're also the guy that likes, silent horror movies from the 20s to incorporate them in your video clips, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, that was my idea. Just kind of searching around for, additional kind of B-roll and stuff like that we could throw in to make things a little bit more interesting. And I came across that old Danish 20s horror movie, and the costumes were I think what kind of struck me the most, because obviously in the 20s they had to do everything manually. There's no CGI, so like just the fact that those people put that much effort into this weird little horror movie with those costumes, it's like, all right, well, we gotta try to keep this alive, I guess, in some sort of regard. So might as well.
Did you know that movie was illegal for the longest time in the United States?
I did kind of know that. The history is a little bit it's a little bit confusing because it was illegal like during like the Satanic Panic era, right? Or was it illegal before then?
Also, but before, I mean, and this is coming from somebody who's European. I live in North America now for 8 years, but let's just leave it at a lot of things that are considered art in Europe are sometimes considered a little offensive in North America. You're a lover of guitar, that's clear. You are a very talented guy. So as a specialist yourself, why is Andy La Rocque one of the most underrated guitar players of all time?
Oh my God, Andy's probably like one of my favorite guitarists ever. I think when I'm thinking of like writing a solo, I usually kind of approach it from a standpoint of like, well, what would Andy do? And I think it's just because he blends together this ability of like, obviously, he's a very technically proficient guy. He can hold his own with any of the great shredders of the 80s, but he also has this really great melodic sort of sense that he brings into it, where he has these like, kind of almost like sing-along hooks in the middle of his solos, which always just stood out to me. But because he's not a theory guy, I think he sort of approaches it from a basically just using his ear to try to create this kind of weird sort of vibe in and of itself. That's just like so particularly just Andy. It was kind of weird to have him on a track and then to have my solo right after it, because I'm like, okay, it's like Andy La Rocque, like the real thing, and then you have like Andy La Rocque light.
You are a big, Andy and King Diamond fan, right? I mean, that's no secret or no surprise. So when you found out that it was going to happen, that Andy was going to play on the record, like that must have been a bit of a fanboy moment for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was kind of like trying not to get my hopes up until I had like the final product, and I was like, once he actually sent it over and he's like, all right, here, let me know what you think. Let me know if I went too crazy with the effects. It's kind of a different sort of part. And I was just like, oh my God, yes, it happened. This is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. And, what I had sort of in mind for this. So yeah, awesome. It was, yeah, man. And, and then just like telling the guys, I was like, cool, got the Andy La Rocque solo. And I'm like, wait, so the guitar player from King Diamond is going to be on our record also? Like, yes. Like, oh shit, okay. It's kind of mind-blowing.
As far as I can tell, but maybe I'm wrong, the new album is not the concept album? Are you a fan of concept albums? That's something you would like to do?
Yeah, so, though this album is not a concept album, it's sort of kind of got the ball rolling enough from sort of working off of like a thematic kind of template. Because everything on this album, we got the album art first, so we kind of had this in the back of our mind while we're composing everything that was going to go into this album. So there's a bit of a common thread as far as that goes. Though it's, it's like the A side of like King Diamond's Fatal Portrait or something, where it's like kind of, it's in the same wheelhouse, but not necessarily a full story. But that, on the other hand, has kind of gotten us talking about doing more of sort of like a concept kind of thing for maybe even the next record that we do. So whether or not that ends up sort of being like a, you know, like King Diamond's like Abigail or something, where it's like very like character centered and focused, or kind of, or sort of more like Iron Maiden's like a seventh son of a seventh son kind of thing. That has yet to be decided, but yeah, we have some ideas, and definitely kind of taking the themes from Decadence and Decay and kind of just going into those more so.
You're counting down towards the launch. This video will come out before the album is out. What can the fans expect? What should they keep their eyes open for still?
Yeah, so we have a we're going to be doing a lyric video release and another single. The next single is going to be Kill All Kings, and then after that we finished up another video for the track Divine Fury that should be coming out the same week as the release of the full length. So we'll have just a couple little snippets, and then the final thing is out in the world.
Awesome. And then hopefully, you know, we'll find ourselves in a situation soon enough that you guys can take this on the road again and tour, and then hopefully you guys can stop in Toronto here in Canada, and we can do we can check in person instead of over video calls for the next conversation. Hey Bryce, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Really excited for the release, and yeah, man. Good luck with the rest of the launch cycle.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.